Hello, lovely. While I'm waiting for my floor to dry, shall we have a bit of a chat about paintbrushes? Because that can be quite confusing. So if I tilt you, the camera, and then we'll look at my selection and I can help explain what would be helpful for you. And I'm sorry about all the gubbins in the background there. That is my work in progress area and my cup of tea. So I'm just going to talk through a little bit about all the brushes that I've got, because if you see on video, sometimes people will see all the brushes I've got and they go, oh, do I need all those brushes? No, as an artist, I have gathered quite a lot. So first of all, fan brushes, and that's a blending brush. You probably don't need any of those. Forget those. I keep them separate. This actually has still got the label on. The price ticket, that was one of my late mum's brushes, as are these. These are all my old mum's brushes. She lived to 101, bless her, and she used to paint in oils. They're great long things, really stiff and gummed up with oils, but they're very interesting to paint with, but not really relevant to doll's house work. She does have a couple of littler brushes in here. She's got a squirrel, a hare and sable. I'm not going to use those. So they're just around for sentimental reasons. Then I've got a whole pot full of delicious synthetic watercolour brushes. I'm not going to use these unless I haven't done it yet, but I am going to be painting a picture, a scene out, sort of like behind a pretend window. So I'll probably use my watercolour brushes for those, but they're not really relevant to anything that I'm doing in my house. So we'll move those out of the way. Here in this little pot, I have a whole selection of bits and pieces. These are things that I've used for particular projects. So this one, it's a filbert brush. I've used this for calligraphy. So this has been used with Indian ink, as has this one for Oriental style calligraphy, and not quite sure why that's in there. Don't know what that's been used for, but anyway, they're just in there. That's the sort of other things, and this is a sort of a funny shaped rubbery thing. Don't know if I've used that for anything, but firm angle chisel, it says. Don't know where I got it from. Probably came in a kit of some sort. Anyway, when people say use the best you can afford or buy the best you can afford, that's not really relevant in this situation. If you're an artist, if you're doing really fine watercolours, my late sister used to do exquisite watercolour landscape, and I presume, I don't know, I haven't seen the brushes she used, I presume she used beautiful brushes. That's for that project. It's different for us. This pot is a whole bunch of things. That's a better brush. Probably won't use that for anything housey, but I've got a whole bunch of what we'd call round brushes, but they've got a bit of a tip on. Now, none of these are expensive. Okay, so there's Winsor & Newton Coatman. That's a better brush, but these are going to be good for fine details. But most of them, I don't know, that must have been one of Mum's. That's pure sable, but I've left its cover on there. So maybe this is a little bit of watercolour selection. I wouldn't buy a sable brush personally. You can get really good synthetic ones. Yeah, so these will be good for fine detail, but actually I don't choose to use these. So that's another pot out. These I have used, and if you've seen the video of me undercoating the initial coating on my house, yes, I've used these as synthetic or bristle. I would use these. The one I've used for staining my floor is this range. So it's synthetic, very soft. I've written on this varnish because I used this when I was varnishing painting. So this has been used for varnish. This is going to be staying for varnish because you don't want to mess up your varnish brush, because you want to be able to have a nice smooth finish. Bristle brushes, so you tend to use bristle with acrylic a bit more. You're not going to get the same smooth finish because they're all a bit rough. They are bristle. Art Studio, nothing expensive. But it's good if you're just laying down some colour, or if you want some texture or something, but you're not going to get a smooth finish. This is just like a decorator's brush. So when I was working as an artist, I would put down the initial coats of white paint on the background with that sort of size brush. And I've got various sponges kicking around that you can use for different things. These are all my acrylic brushes, and there's all sorts of shapes and sizes, flat ones. These are probably my favourite. Crafter's Choice. I think I got these from the range, or could have been the works, but I think it was the range. They're pretty gummed up with acrylic, but they're good if you're covering something. And I tend to use, this is Crawford and Black, so that's probably come from the works. This is Sea White, so this is student quality. This is really quite ropey on the top, so that's not going to be good for getting a nice smooth finish. What I do find useful, I will show you the ones that I use a lot of, and they're in this range with these shaped handles. These 3 small brushes. Now I use these a lot, and I will replace them as soon as I find them again. I will replace these because they're actually really useful. So when I was doing, I can't reach it at the moment to show you, when I was doing my stove, and it's got the tube up the chimney up the back of the stove, which is painted in black, but the background is blue, I was using these 2 to get in around behind the chimney, because they're a bit sort of pokey, but also you haven't got to worry too much. They are very forgiving. With a gentle, rinse them out straight away in water, and then give them a wash in a bit of soapy water. I have a soak away, so underneath part of my cabin, which is in the garden, which is on gravel, and this gravel has been here, I think I could say forever, but it's not forever. The people that Paul bought the house from had had it down for at least 20 years. He's been here for at least 20 years. Probably gravel's been down probably about 50 years here. Deep gravel, because they used to park a caravan on it. So it's not going to be coming in contact with any water source, watercourse, or any of my plants, and nowhere where the hedgehogs go or anything like that. But I chuck my dirty water down there, and because I don't want to put it down the drain. So this range is good, and you can often get these in a set of, I don't know, I probably got all of these in a set together. Have I got any more? Yes, there's another one. These probably all came together, so it's worth looking out for those. They're really useful. Got some other flat ones that are quite useful. These are W.H. Smith's. They're all right, but I don't find them terribly useful. The other ones that I do find useful, which I have bought a few of, I bought some specially for enamel. And can you see how fine that is? That is so incredibly fine. So this is a 5-0 master stroke. Let's see if I can get that in focus for you. So I bought this specially for using with enamel paint for very fine detail, and this is major brushes, and that is get in front of my top so you can see, that's a very fine. This actually hasn't even been used, it hasn't been washed, so when you get a new brush they're sort of stuck together, so you need to give that a rinse under some soapy water to release this sort of protective coating that they've got. And I will show you in a minute what I have got as a drying rack. You'd never want to stand your brushes in a pot of water because that's how they get distorted and ruin them even quicker. But I mean, obviously if you've got cheap brushes it doesn't matter too much. So these I have already used quite a lot. There's a 0, there's a 3. Have I used that? No, that's the one I haven't used. This one I've used, which is a 9. I've used those 3 quite a lot already with enamelling things, but to have a couple of really fine brushes is really helpful. But I mean, we're talking a couple of quid for each, that's all. It's not like an enormous major investment. So all of these things, you know, you might buy to begin with. You're not going to have to buy them again or for quite some time. Let me just reach my brush drying. Now we've got this cobbled together, you see, there we are. My gloves that I used for staining the floor have just been drying. So this is a loaf baking tin. Get all my secrets here. Bulldog clips, a couple of bits of wood, bulldog clips, and then I can pin on, so the brushes have been washed, I pin them on there and then they can dry quite happily. And with the big brushes, because these are quite fat ended, they will fit on like that. So I can dry quite a few brushes overnight easily like that. And this is brilliant. And the things I found online when I was looking for drying brushes, because I found I was sort of trying to rest them on radiators and stuff like that, and it really wasn't very satisfactory. They're sort of designed to dry your brush that way up. You don't want to dry your brush that way up because it'll make this metal bit rusty, and you want the water, if there is any water, to drain out. So it's just sort of caring for what you've got really, but also giving them the maximum chance to dry out ready for your next session, because there's nothing worse than wanting to get on with your next project and you can't because of the brushes. When it comes to things like glue or gold leaf, I do tend to keep a brush separate. So it's like I might use this one for applying glue on something, and I will do a whole tutorial on using gold leaf because it is really quite a tricky beastie to work with, and I've used it a lot in art. So I will do you a video on that. So I'll talk to you very soon. Ta-ta now.